Welcome! So today I'm going to be talking about the fuel for a spiritual awakening. And so first let's start off with what is a spiritual awakening? Well, when you are understanding yourself to be this body, this mind, these thoughts, these emotions, there's something much deeper inside. We'll call it consciousness or awareness, or that watcher, that witnesser that is aware of everything going on all around you all the time. And when your attention is put on that consciousness itself, and it can actually hold itself on the consciousness itself, so it's basically consciousness is focusing back in on itself for an extended period of time, and we're talking maybe more than 3 minutes, you'll see that there is this awareness that grows beyond the normal limits of what you're normally aware of. Okay, so usually we're typically aware of things that are in our just our common environment, and what happens is your awareness expands to a certain degree where you're aware of things that are much further beyond the body, the mind, the normal environment that you're used to. And so you start to see yourself as a being that is beyond the limits of what you used to think yourself to be. And so the spiritual awakening process starts here, because you stop identifying yourself to be this limited body, this limited mind, these limited thoughts, and these limited emotions that make you feel stuck. So what happens is when you have something that occurs in your life. It could be a traumatic event, it could be a challenge, an obstacle, a block, a challenging relationship or a financial situation, or something gets taken away, somebody gets sick, somebody dies. These are all what I would call the fuel for the fire that causes people to wake up, okay? Because they can't necessarily cope with the outer world, they have to retreat and they have to go deep inside. And so what happens is they go deep inside and looking for answers, looking for the source of peace inside, and then they find the God source within them, which is this pure conscious awareness, which I was speaking about earlier. So that's how initially, usually people get initiated into the spiritual awakening experience. And so there's blessings in disguise here. Right? You think something's awful that happens to you. Well, what happens is it's kind of like the beach ball. You push the beach ball underneath the water. The further down it goes, the more pressure it builds to resurface much faster. So it's very important to understand that you don't need an actual traumatic event to have a spiritual awakening experience. The key is that you already have challenges that you're dealing with every day. You already have feelings of limitation, blocks, challenges on some level where you're just not able to tap into your highest power and your highest good. So use them, okay? Use them as fuel for the fire of your own spiritual awakening. And let them push you deeper into this pure awareness that you're just necessarily just holding this conscious presence upon itself. So it's basically like a mirror reflecting back upon itself. So it's interesting that the ego has a resistance to spiritual awakening, because what happens is that the ego no longer has a job. It's basically unemployed once you wake up, and it doesn't necessarily like that, so it tries to reestablish itself. You'll find people who have had major awakenings that the ego slowly creeps in when they least know it, and if they're not completely devoted to their spiritual path, the ego will once again sort of take over and make you believe that you're a limited being with limited intelligence, limited power, limited knowledge, limited energy. Okay? And it's all fine and dandy. We need the limited experience in life to have the unlimited experience. You wouldn't even know what the feeling of infinite or eternal or unlimited would feel like, or even the experience it would be like, unless you had a really contracted experience that was small and tight and compressed. And I like to equate this to what I call the popcorn analogy, which is the ego is like a little tiny kernel of popcorn. And if you notice, like a little tiny kernel of popcorn is so small and so tight and contracted, and it's got this hard shell that it likes to protect itself. And yet, when we add heat to it, right, we add a lot of heat to it, which is all the things that are happening in life. You see on the news, natural disasters, the stock market here. I mean, there's so many things that you'll see that add heat to the fire of life. That's the heat that's needed to expand this popcorn, okay, expand the ego and take you into this really very vast, unlimited state of being where you see this tiny little piece of popcorn just goes boom and blows up into this light, fluffy sensation, which is very, in some way, healing. Okay, that there's a release of this tightness. And you also notice, if you look on the popcorn, when popcorn's popped, there's a little piece of the shell that's still attached to the little white fluffy part, right? So this is still the ego. The ego shell is still hanging on, but it's not containing you. Okay, there's an absence of the contracted small tight part. There's just this little shell that's just on the side that may be reflecting certain parts of other relationships or situations or whatever that you may be encountering in life, where you say, oh, I still have an ego. Well, yeah, of course you do. You really need an ego to have any sort of form of identity to be in a human body on this form, on this plane. And eventually the ego gets so thin and small that it's sort of insignificant. It's kind of like if you have a big ego, it's like a rock that's in your shoe, a pretty large pebble. But the smaller your ego gets, it's kind of like a tiny little grain of sand or even dust. And I'm sure everybody's got some dust in their shoes. And so you don't even know it's there. It's you just cruise through life, enjoying life without that hindrance of the ego creating obstacles or challenges for creating what you want. And that's really why we don't manifest what we want instantaneously, is because the ego has these deep unconscious, subconscious beliefs installed in our software and our programming that say, well, you can't have this, you're not enough, you're not able, you're too much this way, not enough that way. And so it's just these deep beliefs, you can't really see them until you do a lot of meditation, until you do a lot of introspection, do a lot of writing, or just talking on a very deep level and a very relaxed level about what's really going on inside. And then you can start to see, wow, I've got some interesting beliefs here that I didn't know I had, but they're running the show. So with all that, it's interesting to see how the ego plays a perfect role in one's spiritual awakening process. That the universe does not make a mistake. It just can't. It's all perfect. It's all divine. And we need every experience to create this divine spiritual awakening, which is what we're all here to do. Okay? It's the greatest thing you could ever imagine. It's like becoming a movie star, on your own planet, and you own all the money and everything that you could ever want is instantly manifest for you. It's kind of that level of freedom and complete self-expression, where you really are shining. You are the star of your life, and you're the producer, the director of the show. You're the actors. You're the stage. You're the audience. You're all of it. And so that's what happens when the spiritual awakening happens. Is there's this recognition that you already are all these things. So the key for you is to really apply the things that you may be resisting in your life. Okay, this is the fuel. The things that you're avoiding, things you don't appreciate about yourself or other people. And by the way, other people are just a mirror for the things that you don't want to look at inside you. You point that finger outside yourself and you see there's three fingers at least pointing back at you, right? So you want to acknowledge that it's really all about you. And that's how you take your power back. That's how you get the fuel to take on the spiritual awakening. And it's a very intense experience sometimes, that you have to own all of these issues instead of saying, well, it's not about me, it's about them. It's about the world, that the world's messed up. The world's not messed up. The world's exactly the way it needs to be to create this fuel, this fire, this burning of the ego, where the ego gets so hot that it expands. The popcorn ignites, and there's this lightness of being again, which is our true nature. And that's what we're all here to do, is to find our true nature and return to that and come home to yourself, because it's the best experience you'll ever have, and it only enriches your normal everyday life. You'll continue doing the same things that you did yesterday and last week, but you're going to do them with much more aliveness, much more joy, more compassion for others, more compassion for yourself. There's a sense of peace, deep, deep, deep inner peace inside of you. And there's this feeling of total freedom, that you can do anything you want to do and have anything you want to have, manifest whatever you want. Okay? So those are like the little goodies, the little benefits that you get for opening yourself up to the spiritual awakening and coming home to yourself. Okay? Instead of continually doing the same old way of living, which is just reaching out there, looking out there for the answers, looking at somebody else's dream, what they want you to buy or do on TV or whatever, that everybody else wants something from you. And this is all about you, wanting something from you, like you getting something from you as well by going within. And so it's a really sacred process, and it's a divine awakening within yourself. And so you can't just sort of bypass it and say, well, it's just another experience in life. It's every experience is a real sacred experience, and when you really open yourself up to that possibility, then you'll see that it just enriches every area of your life. Okay? So make a list of all the things that you may think are like failures in your life, or challenges, blocks, things that you're confronted by, the complaints basically that you have in life, and see how that is the fuel that you're needing to own, and saying, okay, I'm holding on to these thoughts, these beliefs, these ideas. I'm the one generating them by keep thinking about them. If I just stop thinking about them, then they won't exist anymore. But I need them for my own spiritual awakening. They're here as fuel. Okay? So use them, because they're gifts. The universe has given you these gifts of these blocks and challenges, these frustrations, so that they can push you deeper inside yourself, so you can find this source of love, the source of God, the source of you. And it's all the same source. There's just one source. So it's real simple. It's just about coming home to that source that you are. And it happens effortlessly. In fact, any effort you make to try to get there, you'll miss it. So it's a real true deep relaxation. It's just a letting go. That's the best I can call it. There's probably no words that can really truly describe it, because it's so effortless that even the word effortlessness is too much effort for what this takes to really fall into yourself. Okay? So just trust the process. It's magical, it's sweet, it's fulfilling, it's everything that you've ever wanted to be, and you're here to enjoy it, explore it, and have fun. Okay? So thank you so much for listening, and this is Jafree at enlightenedbeings.com. Bye for now.